For centuries, people have hidden the one part of your body that could truly set you free. It's not your heart or your brain, it's the pineal gland. This tiny, light-sensitive spot deep in your brain was once seen by ancient cultures as the seat of the soul. The wise teacher Theon didn't just talk about enlightenment, he mapped it out. What he left behind wasn't mystery, but a method, a step-by-step process hidden in symbols, rituals, and even your body. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. Or maybe we were made to forget. You were never supposed to open this inner eye, because if you do, everything changes. You don't just see the world differently, you see beyond it. And that's where their control ends. This isn't fantasy. It's about your body, your awareness, and universal laws. You're not here to be entertained, you're here to remember. So let's get started. Most people only know the pineal gland as a tiny, rice-sized part of the brain they skimmed over in science class. But for the ancients, it was everything. It was the gateway between the physical world and the divine, the part that let people connect with something infinite. The Egyptians carved it into stone, the Hindus called it the third eye, and the Greeks saw it as the soul's home. Yet today, it's ignored, mocked, or even suppressed. Think about that. Why would modern society hide something all ancient traditions honored as sacred? Because this little gland isn't just another body part, it's your antenna, your inner compass pointing toward higher truths. It picks up light, not just from the sun, but spiritual light, insight beyond the senses, frequencies that go deeper than what you can normally perceive. When you start waking it up, you stop blindly believing what you're told and begin remembering what you've always known deep down. You stop reacting and start truly seeing, not with your eyes, but with that inner eye they tried to close. They didn't just ignore the pineal gland, they attacked it. Fluoride in the water, blue light from screens, and messages telling you it's all nonsense. Think that's a coincidence? Chemicals that dull this gland, lights that mess up your natural rhythms, and melatonin, a key hormone it produces. You weren't just taught to ignore your inner eye, you were trained to forget it exists. As it dimmed, so did your vision. You began to see only the surface of things, deadlines, screens, schedules. You started believing logic was all that mattered and anything invisible was fake. But Thoth never spoke in logic. He used symbols and metaphors, not to confuse, but because what he meant can't be put into plain words. The pineal gland doesn't respond to arguments. It responds to vibration, resonance, and intention. When you tune into those, you remember you're not just a name, a job, or a role. You are awareness itself, flowing through your body and reaching beyond. Some of what Thoth taught is too detailed to explain here, especially on YouTube. That's why we created the free Insights Academy newsletter to share what can't be said publicly. For a limited time, you'll also get a free copy of the Kybalion when you sign up. Just hit the link in the description. The reason this gland scares those in power is because it connects you to something no system can control, your direct experience of the infinite. The pineal gland doesn't need rules or permission. That's why religions, science, and media have spent lifetimes trying to discredit it. Because once you open it, you stop needing them. You don't need anyone between you and the divine. You become your own temple, priest, and altar. Thoth didn't ask for blind faith or worship. He said, "Know thyself." And the pineal gland is the doorway to that knowing. This isn't just philosophy. It's a real, physical process inside you. The ancients knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't build pyramids to bury people. They built them as special chambers to awaken something inside. That something starts deep in the brain, in the pineal gland, where light is born. Not from the sun, but from spirit. If you feel like something's missing, that's because it is. Not outside you, but inside. What you've been missing isn't a belief, but a connection. A real, living, glowing connection to the source of who you are. That connection has a physical spot inside you, just waiting for you to remember. You were told the divine is somewhere far away, above the clouds, beyond the stars. But Thoth never said that. What he passed on wasn't a religion to follow, but a science to live. Your body isn't a prison, it's a portal. a living temple with sacred geometry, energy flows, and secret paths. And in the middle of that temple is a pillar. Ancient Egyptians called it the jade. Modern science calls it the spine. But they knew it was much more. It's the axis between worlds. The highway spirit travels up and down. The jade wasn't just about strength. It symbolized the awakened human, someone who's lifted energy from their base all the way up to the crown, lighting an inner sun. Every bone in your spine, every nerve, every breath you take is part of this system. The spine isn't just something that holds you up. It's a conductor of energy. Once you get that, you realize enlightenment isn't an accident. It's built step by step, breath by breath. Thoth's method wasn't about escaping your body to reach higher places. It was about fully diving into your body, mastering it, and getting it in tune. Because until you activate your body's inner network, those higher energies can't connect. You don't reach the infinite by ignoring your body. You do it by tuning your body like a musical instrument. And the pineal gland is the crown of that instrument, the final point where everything resonates. The process starts lower down, in the root, the sacrum. These aren't just New Age ideas. They're real places in your body with real energy effects. They control your instincts, survival, and sexual energy. That energy isn't meant to be blocked. It's meant to be refined and lifted up. When you understand this, that energy becomes the fuel for spiritual awakening. But most people never raise it. They're taught to either give into it too much or to deny it completely. Both are traps. Thoth showed a third way: transformation. When your breath is calm and your intention clear, this energy begins to rise. It doesn't shoot up all at once. It moves slowly, twisting and climbing like the snakes on Hermes' staff, like strands of DNA. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a real design. The spine is real. And as this energy moves up, it activates gland after gland until it reaches the pineal. You weren't meant to depend on outside authority to find the divine. You were built to experience it yourself through your own body. And the design of your body is amazing. The spine, brain, and nerves, all of it is sacred architecture. The shape of your spine even looks like the magician's staff, the wand of power, the caduceus, the main pillar in a temple. It's all coded, waiting for you to remember how to use it. But first, you have to drop the idea that your body is ordinary. It's not. It's the most advanced machine out there. And Thoth left the instructions, not in plain words, but in symbols, geometry, and vibration. The Ankh wasn't just decoration. It was a secret code. The Eye of Horus wasn't a myth. It was a map of your brain. And the Jed wasn't just a religious symbol. It was the hidden spine of the soul. You walk around every day with a temple inside you, more powerful than any building on earth. And at the top of that temple is the pineal gland, like a lamp in a tower. But until you turn on the energy inside, that lamp stays dark. That's the difference between just believing something and actually experiencing it. You can read all the ancient books you want, but until you use your body like the tool it was made to be, the mysteries stay hidden. What Thoth taught wasn't just theory. It was practice. Real, living knowledge you embody. So when people tell you to leave your body to find God, remember Thoth's advice. Dive deep into your temple, because only then can you rise. There's a substance inside you more valuable than gold. The ancients knew about it. Thoth talked about it without naming it directly because sacred things aren't given away easily. They called it the oil of light, the sacred secretion, the Christos. Everyone produces it, but almost no one knows what it does. This oil is made in a tiny part of your brain called the claustrum and flows down your spine in sync with the moon's cycle. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a real physical process. But like many great truths, it's been hidden in stories, twisted by religion, and mocked by science. Because if you understood what this oil can do, you'd stop chasing outside salvation and start protecting your own inner flow. The ancient Egyptians knew the brain wasn't just for thinking. It was the throne of God in the body. They knew about a fluid that, when preserved and lifted up, would return to its source and light up the mind with divine light. That fluid is still inside you. But here's the truth they don't teach. Every month, if your body is aligned, a seed forms in your solar plexus, a tiny spark of creative power. This seed needs the sacred oil to rise. If it moves up the spine without disturbance, activating glands along the way, it reaches the pineal gland and transforms. The oil turns to light, the body becomes a temple, and the person awakens. This is why ancient traditions value self-discipline, not because pleasure is bad, but because energy is sacred. Ejaculation, overdoing it, stress, anger, and negative feelings drain the body of this vital oil. Without it, the seed can't rise. Without the seed, the light can't awaken. You can see how the modern world is set up to block this process, with overstimulation, addictions, bad diet, toxic media, and constant distractions. A body that loses this oil never has enough light to wake up, and a population that never wakes is easy to control. Thoth wasn't interested in control. His teachings were for those ready to walk the narrow path, those who knew alchemy isn't just about metals, but about refining yourself. The sacred oil is your true goal. It's the liquid fire that, when treated with respect, lights up the pineal gland. You don't have to believe it to be true. Just try living in a way that protects your inner energy and see what happens. Once this oil starts to rise, everything changes. Your thoughts get clearer, your dreams more vivid, your instincts stronger. The veil starts to lift. That's why ancient stories link this process to resurrection, the phoenix, and the rebirth of Christ. It's not about dying for real. It's about dying to ignorance. It's the moment when the light returns to the throne and the inner eye opens. These ideas are hidden in every major text and symbol. The land flowing with milk and honey, that's your brain. Your pituitary and pineal glands releasing sacred substances when everything's in balance. The story of the prodigal son, that's the seed coming back home after being lost in your lower energy centers. Bethlehem, the house of bread, is your solar plexus, the place where that seed is born. The 3 days in the tomb? That's how long the sacred oil rests in your brain before it transforms. This was never really about history. It's always been about you. You've been told to look outside yourself for signs and miracles. But the real miracle happens inside your own body, a biological process so complex and divine, it turns matter into spirit. This isn't religion, it's sacred science. And it starts when you stop wasting your energy and start preserving it. Because this oil of light isn't unlimited, it's precious. Once you begin to honor and protect it, you'll see why the world never wanted you to know about it in the first place. Most people see ancient symbols as just art, myths, or decorations. They look at the Ankh and call it a cross. They see the Eye of Horus and think superstition. They look at the Jed pillar and think it's just an old carving. But Thoth never wasted symbols. He packed real, usable knowledge into them. Tools, maps, and keys to understanding your body and energy. When you learn to read these symbols, they stop being just pictures and become living instructions. They weren't made for worship, they were made to activate you. Take the Eye of Horus. It's divided into 6 parts, each matching one of the human senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, thought, and intuition. Most people miss this, but if you lay the Eye of Horus over a cross-section of the brain, it matches perfectly. The thalamus, corpus callosum, pineal, and pituitary glands all line up. This isn't a coincidence. It's precise anatomy hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. Then there's the Ankh, often seen as just a religious symbol for life. But it's more than that. The top loop represents the pineal gland, the 0 point, the sun, the receiver. The vertical line is the spine, the Jed pillar, and the horizontal bar is the arms of the cross, showing the balance between your physical body and energy. It's not just a symbol. It's a diagram describing what every mystic and yogi tries to do: raise inner energy, awaken the inner eye, and bring spiritual light into your brain. Symbols speak a language your subconscious understands. Unlike regular language, they don't rely on logic. They go straight to your energy field. That's why the ancients put these symbols everywhere. In temples, jewelry, manuscripts, and even everyday tools. When you're surrounded by symbols of balance, your body remembers and starts to wake up. Thoth didn't just teach with words. He used architecture, geometry, sound, and rhythm. He encoded frequencies into stone. The pyramids weren't built to impress gods. They were designed to match the Earth's natural vibrations, creating a space that deepened inner stillness. Initiates would lie in these chambers and listen, not just with their ears, but with their bones, cells, and consciousness. Every angle, every room, was made to reflect the human body and stimulate hidden abilities. What we've forgotten is that symbolism is science. Not the kind you learn in a lab, but sacred science. How consciousness works through matter. Geometry isn't just math. It's the fingerprint of creation. Spirals, circles, triangles, all universal patterns of energy inside you. When you meditate inside certain shapes, your energy shifts. When you chant specific sounds, your brain changes frequency. When you breathe in sacred rhythms, your nervous system realigns. That's why Thoth's teachings survived. Not because people kept the words, but because they kept the shapes and codes. Even when books were burned and languages lost, the symbols stayed, carved in stone, etched in our consciousness, waiting for someone like you to stop seeing them as art and start using them as instructions. You don't need to understand every detail right now. Just know this: the same geometry in the pyramids and ancient scrolls is inside your body. Your bones, organs, and breathing all follow these patterns. You're not an accident. You're architecture. Your awakening doesn't come from believing new ideas. It comes from activating ancient memories and symbols of the doorway. So next time you see the eye, the ankh, or the jed, don't just look, feel it. It's not asking to be solved, it's asking to be remembered. Because inside you there's a part that already knows what it means. Buried beneath sand and time, wrapped in metaphor and mystery. The emerald tablets of Thoth aren't just relics of a lost civilization. They're coded instructions for those ready to see and remember. These aren't words from someone asking to be followed. They're from a being who transcended form, leaving a trail for those ready to wake from the sleep of the physical world. At the center of these teachings is the path to waking your inner sun. Thoth talks about rising from darkness into light, lying dormant until consciousness calls. Many imagine a myth or fantasy, but the truth is much more real and much more powerful. The halls of Amenti aren't someplace underground. They're deep chambers inside your own mind. Hidden neural pathways and energy circuits in your body that have been unused and forgotten. When the call comes and you start to remember, these halls light up, not just as a metaphor, but literally. The inner sun isn't just a poetic idea. It's your pineal gland fully activated. This tiny bioelectrical center glows with its own subtle light when awake. It produces DMT, a molecule science still can't fully explain. It picks up and sends out frequencies beyond what we can see or hear. It connects different dimensions. When it turns on, the veil between worlds lifts. You stop seeing everything as separate objects. Instead, you see patterns, energy, and truth. You recognize illusion for what it really is and stop being controlled by the version of reality you were taught to believe. Thoth never told us to escape our bodies. He said transcendence happens through embodiment, through stillness, intention, and purification. His teachings talk about mastering yourself before trying to control the world, about aligning with cosmic law before seeking power. The goal was never to dominate, but to resonate. To awaken the pineal gland, you have to resonate with your true self. Not the story you've been told, not the role you play, but the pure awareness underneath it all. The inner sun won't rise if you're distracted, overfed, overstimulated, or disconnected from your breath. It rises when you return to stillness, honor your natural rhythms, and quiet the noise to feel the frequency beneath the silence. This isn't passive. It's an energetic spark. Your spine becomes an altar, your breath a prayer, your pineal gland the flame. The tablets describe a transformation from man into light, not just an idea, but a real process. When the sacred oil rises, when energies align and pathways clear, the light inside you starts to move. It climbs the spine, touches the brain, opens the eye. The initiate becomes something new, not better or more, but more real, more whole. No longer broken by beliefs, trauma, or programming, but reunited with the source of everything. That's why Thoth wrote in code. Because this truth can't be understood by the mind alone. It has to be felt, lived, and experienced. You can't just read your way to awakening. You have to do the work. Preserve your energy. Raise your inner current. Light your lamp. The emerald tablets weren't meant to be worshipped. They were meant to be practiced. The language might seem confusing, the symbols mysterious, but the message is clear. You're not a passive being. You're a cosmic instrument made to channel light through your body. When your inner sun rises, you don't need outside approval. You don't need systems telling you who you are. You become your own source of knowing, your own guide. That's what Thoth wanted to pass on. Not a religion or doctrine, but the memory of your own light. Once you remember it, nothing can control you again. There's a reason this hasn't been taught in school, church, or mainstream science. There's a reason the pineal gland is dismissed as useless. Ancient teachings are called myths, and symbols like the Eye of Horus are treated like fashion statements. It's not because the knowledge is wrong, it's because it's too powerful. Power in the hands of individuals threatens every system built on control. Thoth's wisdom wasn't banned because it was dangerous, it was hidden because it was freeing. It made you sovereign, self-aware, impossible to manipulate. And the world that grew without this wisdom is one that thrives on obedience, not awakening. From birth, you're trained to look outside for truth, in institutions, experts, and dogma. But none of those lead inward. None of them lead home. They swapped sacred temples for churches, sacred geometry for walls built on fear and guilt. They replaced breathwork with confession, energy preservation with shame, inner knowing with blind belief. They turned transformation into sin and sacred symbols into warnings. Anything that pointed inward was called dangerous. Questioning authority was rebellion. Anyone claiming to hold light inside was silenced, crucified, or turned into a symbol of suffering. The war on the pineal gland is real. Not just a metaphor, but a method. Fluoride in the water, processed food that dulls your nervous system, a culture that glorifies overstimulation and mocks stillness. It's all designed to keep your inner lamp from lighting up. Because when the pineal wakes up, the illusion breaks. The veil lifts. You stop needing permission to exist. You stop chasing validation. You begin to see through the systems built to keep you trapped in endless cycles of work, consumption, fear, doubt, and repeat. Why do you think ancient knowledge was pushed underground? Why were Hermetic teachings hidden? Why are the emerald tablets full of layers and metaphors? Why are sacred texts treated like curiosities instead of serious tools for change? Because true awakening doesn't need middlemen. It doesn't make money. It doesn't serve governments, corporations, or organized religion. It serves you. And that kind of freedom is a threat. They want you passive, not powerful, distracted, not disciplined, addicted, not aligned. Because a person who protects their sacred energy and looks inward becomes rare, unshakable. Unshakable people don't buy false stories. They don't wait for permission to live. They remember who they are. That's why you're told to dismiss ancient symbols as fantasy, why mysticism is called madness, and why science won't explore the pineal gland beyond sleep regulation. Because if they admitted this gland does more, their whole worldview would start to crack, and when it cracks, the light gets in. The same light Thoth spoke of, the same light you carry inside. You don't have to reject the world to see through it. You just have to stop letting it set your limits, because there's no law of nature that says you have to fit in. There's no divine rule telling you to forget where you come from. What's really unnatural is how you've been trained to ignore your own intelligence, your power, and your connection to something bigger. And the worst part? You probably didn't even notice it happening. That's how deep this programming goes. But it's not permanent. Awakening doesn't come from anger. It comes from clarity, from choosing to stop giving your energy to systems that feed off your fear, and instead, turning that energy inward. That's when the battle ends. Not because the system gives up, but because you stop playing by its rules. You stop feeding it with your attention. And that's what they fear most. Not loud revolutions, but quiet remembering. Because one awakened person can't be controlled, and many awakened people start building a world the system can't survive in. This path isn't about belief, it's about practice. Thoth didn't leave us temples to worship stones. He gave us blueprints, coded in rituals, symbols, and geometry, to activate what's inside us. The technique he taught wasn't mystical. It was mechanical, a precise physiological and energetic process that can wake what's asleep in every human. But today, people want shortcuts, quick fixes, instant enlightenment. That's not how it works. There's no pill, app, or hack. Just you, your breath, your body, and your focus. It all starts with breath. Not the shallow, unconscious breathing most people do, but conscious, rhythmic, refined breathing. Breath carries life energy, what the ancients called prana, chi, or shum. Thoth said that to raise energy up the spine, the jed, you have to master your breath first. It's like a pump, an activator. Each inhale brings in potential. Each exhale clears out what's stuck. But it's more than oxygen. It's about awareness. Breath pulls your attention inward, aligning body and mind, readying your temple for something sacred. Then comes stillness. In a world addicted to constant motion, stillness is power. It's in stillness that the cerebrospinal fluid, the sacred secretion we talked about, can rise. As your breath slows, your spine stretches, and your nervous system relaxes, this fluid starts to flow upward. This isn't magic. It's physics. The more you protect your inner energy through things like retention, fasting, and discipline, the more charge builds in your lower centers. And that charge doesn't stay put. It wants to rise, spiral, and climb. Your spine is its staircase. But this isn't just biology. It's electrical. Your spine is full of nerves, channels for communication. When breath and intention align and energy is held instead of wasted, it creates an electromagnetic field inside your body. This field can actually be measured. It changes your brain waves, heart coherence, and hormone balance. And as this field grows stronger, the pineal gland deep in your brain starts to wake up. The pineal gland is covered in tiny crystals, piezoelectric crystals, that respond to pressure and vibration. When the cerebrospinal fluid flows over the pineal and breath and stillness come together, it creates a charge. That charge activates the crystals, making them vibrate. This vibration sends a signal, not just through your nervous system, but beyond it, out and in, through dimensions most people have forgotten how to sense. This is what ancient traditions called the awakening of the inner sun. Not just a quick insight, but deep, lasting illumination. The gland glows, releasing its sacred chemicals. You might feel pressure in your head, see subtle light behind closed eyes, or have knowing that comes not from your mind. This is when time starts to fade. You're not just in one room, you're in all rooms. You're not your name, you're your essence. Thoth described this as rising beyond the flesh, passing through gates of space, becoming one with everything. But he wasn't being poetic. He was describing what happens when you fully activate your human system. You start experiencing multiple dimensions. Time stops being a straight line. Space feels fluid. You see through illusions because your inner eye is open. But this isn't a one-time event. It's a discipline, a rhythm, a way of life. You align what you do to support the rise of energy. You eat to nourish your light, not feed cravings. You breathe to awaken, not just survive. You meditate to engage the world more deeply, with clear vision, not to escape it. This is what it means to walk the path of the initiate, to take responsibility for your inner fire and guide it step by step toward the light. When this becomes your way of life, the world around you starts to change. Not because the world itself changed, but because you did. You're no longer seeing just with physical eyes. You're seeing with the eye of light. And what once felt impossible begins to unfold, not as miracles, but as the natural result of remembering who you really are. There's a quiet moment after awakening when everything feels both familiar and new. You walk the same streets, see the same faces, hear the same news, but something is different. The veil is thinner. You start to notice the patterns, how fear is sold, how division is created, how people are kept busy enough to never question where their energy really goes. And then it hits you. Not just how asleep you used to be, but how many people still are. That's when the real work starts. Because this journey was never meant to end with just you waking up. Awakening isn't the finish line. It's just the beginning of coming back. When your inner eye opens, your perspective grows beyond personal goals or spiritual highs. You begin to see the bigger picture, the shared dream we're all living in, and how badly it needs people who are awake and aware. You stop asking, how do I get out of this system? And start asking, how do I change it? The wisdom of Thoth wasn't about isolation. It's meant to be shared. Once you carry this light, just being yourself sends a message. You don't preach, you live it, and people feel that. They might not know exactly what's different about you, but something inside them wakes up. A curiosity, a connection, the same thing that once woke you. This is where your personal awakening meets the world's change. When your inner balance starts to affect those around you. Every time someone sees through the illusion, it weakens. Not with anger or force, but with calm, clear truth that doesn't need to shout. That's why systems that control us fear awaken people. Not because they're loud, but because they can't be controlled. And when enough people wake up, that's the tipping point. The moment the old ways fall apart. Not because we fight them, but because we stop believing in them. But this path isn't easy. Awakening strips away illusions, comfort zones, and easy escapes. It calls for honesty and courage. Not the kind in stories, but the quiet kind that lets you see things clearly and keep going with an open heart. And from that courage comes something powerful: compassion. You start to realize that people still asleep aren't enemies. They're just you before the spark. They aren't weak, they're waiting. And your light, your truth, your choice to live honestly, that's what makes you a guide, not your words. Here's the truth. The system isn't just breaking down, it's being outgrown. Those carrying the light are building what comes next, but we have to build differently. Not from ego or beliefs, but from connection, from the shared knowing that we aren't separate. The light I bring to myself touches the light in you, and together we make it stronger. The world doesn't change when everyone wakes up all at once. It changes when a few people remember deeply and live that truth every day. That's the return Thoth talked about. Not to a place or a temple, but to a way of being. A return to source, to truth, to the divine spark inside every heart. And when that spark catches fire, it shows the way for others. You don't need to push anyone. Just live your truth. Let your life be proof. Let your energy be the message. Let your presence be the reminder. Because you're not just remembering for yourself, you're remembering for all of us. That light, that knowing, that connection, they were never really lost. Buried maybe, under fear and noise and forgetfulness, but still there. Your pineal gland, your inner eye, your direct link to the infinite, has always been quietly waiting, not for the right belief or a sign from above, but for you to remember, to turn inward, and light the flame with your own breath, intention, and will. What Thoth taught isn't fantasy, it's a natural law, the sacred rule that connects the inside and outside, the above and below. And once you commit to this path, practice the discipline, and protect what's sacred inside you, you realize something deep. Awakening was never something to reach for. It's who you already are. That's why so many fear this path, not because it's impossible, but because it makes you responsible. Not to the system or someone else's rules, but to your own light and truth. And once you see it, once you feel that energy rise, once the gland opens and light flows through you, there's no going back. You can't pretend anymore. You can't numb yourself or distract yourself or believe this world is all there is, because you've seen beyond the veil. What you saw wasn't new. It's ancient, and it's yours. Here's the irony. Everything you've been told to chase, peace, meaning, truth, purpose, was inside you all along. The temples were built in your image. The symbols were carved to reflect you. The texts were written to remind you what your own body already knows. You were never meant to worship Thoth, the pyramids, or gods. You were meant to live their truth, to take the keys left in stone and scripture and unlock your own consciousness. That's the real initiation. Not rituals, robes, or titles, but remembering, living the light in human form. Now that you've heard this and felt something stir inside, here's the question. What will you do with it? Will you let it fade back into an idea? Or will you breathe life into it, practice it, live it, and make it real? This path doesn't need perfection. It needs presence. It asks only that you honor what's rising inside you right now. Every time you choose inner balance over outside distraction, you feed the fire. Every quiet breath brings you closer to ignition. Every time you remember your body as a temple and your mind a gateway, you chip away at the illusion. This isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being fully yourself, not the version shaped by fear or expectations, but the one that remembers it came from the whole, the one carrying wisdom in its bones and light in its blood, the one who doesn't just talk about awakening, but lives it quietly and powerfully from the inside out. You made it this far for a reason. Something inside you already knew. So don't stop now. Don't let this be another forgotten idea. Go deeper. Protect your energy. Raise your vibration. Breathe with purpose. Live with respect. And most of all, guard your light. Because it's not just yours, it's the thread that connects us all. And the more of us who remember, the faster the old world makes way for the new. If you haven't signed up for the Insights Academy newsletter yet, now's your chance. What we've shared here is just the beginning. There's so much more that can't be said out loud. Plus, you'll get the Kybalion ebook for free when you sign up. Links are in the description. Don't miss what's next. If this video spoke to you, let us know by commenting, "I got it."